Happy Sunday evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Fall Like an Eagle podcast, a special edition. We were not live on Friday due to various reasons, but nonetheless, we are here. The preseason, thank God, finally over. Only scored 3 points in our last preseason game yesterday to the hands of the Minnesota Vikings. Not fun at all. Our depth looked like absolute shit. Cooper DeJean has a lot of work to do. Jeremiah Trotter's probably going to make this team, hopefully, fingers crossed. But other than that, everyone else can kick rocks because I didn't see anyone of note or anyone that's going to be anything of substance to this team down the road on that field. So I'm happy that it's over. What I'm not happy with is the fact that once again the starters did not play a snap in the preseason. You could say the weather was an issue. You could say that you didn't want to get them hurt. You didn't want to get Saquon Barkley hurt or like anyone to get hurt, but that chemistry between Jalen Hurts and Cam Jurgens, we don't know. Maybe they're just going to throw him into the fire. We'll see what happens. Don't love it, but next week we got Brazil, and I'm excited against a really good Green Bay Packers team, in my opinion, this year. So without further ado, what's up, Scotty? How you doing?
What's going on, Kyle? Obviously, a lot to talk about today. I think I'm calling this episode like Sunday Night Heat since it's a little special edition for us. I moved this week. Actually moved back to Philly, so I've been super busy. But we definitely wanted to get the show in with the season starting. Of course, our programming is going to be turning up with most likely 2 shows a week. So that's definitely exciting stuff. I did watch a little bit of that fourth preseason game yesterday. I think I turned it on in the third quarter. Obviously, it wasn't on my radar. It's the third preseason game. I'm sorry, there's no more fourth. Again, to me, it really doesn't mean anything at all because I always say that I've seen camp standouts play amazing in the preseason, all 3 games, excuse me, and they still get cut. And that's what the preseason's really for. It's for your at like the people on the verge, on the edge of making the 52-man roster. Or 53 man. I always get that fucked up too.
53.
How many it is, and then the practice squad and all that type of stuff. We'll have to get more familiar with that because they keep changing it year to year. Again, we know I have a different opinion than you on the starters playing because we saw what happened to JJ McCarthy and others. Like it's just not worth the risk, especially because Jalen Hurts is going into his when did he get 2020? So yeah, it's his fifth season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's not like he's a rookie. I think there's something to be said for rookies just to get their feet wet. But this offense, there's a couple new pieces, but nothing really that major besides a new center, you could say. I mean, every other position, Saquon's a veteran. You have a new um right tackle or left guard,
Yep.
but I think he's not like a rookie either.
No.
I'm confident in this team. And then wait, is Brazil next Friday or the following Friday? I think it's
Next
the
Friday. It's next Friday.
is it? Sorry if I just went out. I just want to double check that. So today is the 25th.
Yep.
And then no, next Friday is the 31st.
Next Friday is. Wait. It's the 25th
Yeah.
today. No, next week is the second. Next Friday is the first game.
The 6th. So that's still like 2 weeks away.
Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not next Friday. That's what I thought. So we will obviously have a lot of time to break that entire game down. And we're obviously going to do that within the next 2 weeks leading up to the game. We're going to touch on that a bit today, but we'll have our full analysis and breakdown then. Just to wrap up the preseason, again, the preseason means like the least it's ever meant in the history of time. I would say like it doesn't mean anything at all. Yes, we've seen other teams play their starters for a tiny bit, but again, doesn't mean much to me. They went 2-1 in the preseason, whatever. I'm just, I'm ready for the regular season. As far as camp goes, Well, I don't think I'll say about the preseason yesterday. I think that there could be. I did see some good plays from our defensive line and linebackers in that second half, and then of course the offense. They went down the field a couple times. They just they got bottled up in the red zone. Of course, that was Tanner McKee. So like, who really gives a fuck? Like, what happened? But that was a little bit of a camp battle versus Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee. Based off what I've seen, I think Kenny Pickett is going to be the backup. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to take him just because of what they gave up to get him. The whole Tanner McKee thing. I'm going to be honest with you. Yesterday at the game, I was actually looking for something out of Tanner McKee as I was watching him. And usually, like you would say, preseason's dumb. The third game's only for those banjo players that want to get there, probably get to the third or fourth string at best, just make the roster. But I was a little disappointed because Tanner McKee's a tall guy. He's smart, and I wanted him to overtake the job from Kenny Pickett because what I've seen from Kenny Pickett from this preseason / training camp, I haven't been too impressed. His hands are too small. It's obvious. The only thing that's helping him is the fact that we have a Pro Bowl dynamic roster on the offensive side of the ball. But I don't know. I was expecting a little bit more out of Tanner McKee based off of what I saw last year, and yesterday he stunk. Like he was abysmal. So I don't know what to make of it. The one thing I could tell from preseason is, and sorry, Birds fans, we have no depth. We have no depth. Our whole team is made off of who we're starting on offense and defense. So Cooper DeJean is obviously going to need some work. He's young. We get it. I'm going to give him like 2 to 3 years. But if these players get hurt, we're screwed. Like we are extremely screwed. And I think we're going to have a great year, but you better pray to God that we're healthy this year, or else it's going to be one of those years where we're done early. I'm just going to be honest with you guys.
Represent playing the preseason. So,
Yeah.
to push back on that, I mostly agree, but the reason for that is you have $100 million quarterback. Honestly, we're about to start saying $200 million quarterbacks because they're making closer to two than one.
Yeah.
Um, you have your number one receiver who is one of the top paid in the league. Also, Devontae Smith he's getting number one money as well. I think he's still in the top 10 of highest paid receivers. You brought in Saquon Barkley, is he making the most for a running back? If not, he's got to be top five. So,
Oh yeah. Saquon Barkley's making 13 mil a year, so he's definitely top 5.
so yeah, that's why. I mean, obviously, if you have those top end players, which, they are the most important, especially on offense, I believe offense has really officially taken over, priority more than defense because I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure if you break it down, the offense is getting paid. I don't even know. I probably somewhere over 60% of this, like, taking up your salary cap for sure. The
Correct.
high players on the defense, I mean, I would say they're probably Darius Slay and I guess maybe CJ GJ. I don't know who
Mhm.
else. I mean, you do have that Bradbury contract, unfortunately, but I can't really think of any other players on the defense that are making, good to great money. So that is the trade-off with depth. Now, what I will say about our depth is I think they just have a lot of really young players, but they do have decent depth with like Sidney Brown in the secondary. Now, apparently, we're stacked at corner. That's all that
Mhm.
I'm hearing. And that has obviously been an area of need where we haven't had a lot of depth in the past. So I think that's really good. What position group do you say like there's no depth or you haven't seen anything with the backups that that has you kind of like worried or concerned?
Offensive line easily, quarterback position easily, tight end position easily. So yeah, I mean, like you said, 60% takes up the entire salary cap on the offensive side of the ball. Bro, we have zero depth like anywhere other than cornerback, which is weird because we had no corners last year. So it's going to be a struggle. And as I'm going to get to this comment, Jay, aka Philly, he says, "Do you think the defense will struggle early?" Yeah, I believe they will because next week I think a lot of these people are expecting us to come out swinging next week in Brazil against the Green Bay Packers. But this Green Bay Packers team is going to be really good this year. Jordan Love finished strong last year. They have 4 dynamic young wide receivers. They have a great running back in Josh Jacobs. Now, this team, if we are not ready to play, will steamroll us next week. So we got to be ready to go. I do think the defense will be ready to go. Well, I think they will struggle actually at first just because they haven't played much in the preseason at all. But I'm expecting that. I just want us to have a close finish and just come out swinging and get the job done. That's just what I want us to do.
I agree, but you keep saying next week. It's 2 weeks away.
No, it's next week. It's next week.
So I would consider like next Friday, like this upcoming Friday. It's the following Friday.
Yes, the following Friday. Yep.
Yes. That's 2 weeks.
I see how I do things is I have Sunday as the week started. Okay. A lot of people have Mondays as the week started. I have Sundays as the week started.
But yeah, it's not this Friday, it's the following.
Correct.
I feel like you've been worried about this game like for months now, or like, I obviously think it's going to be a close game. But again, what I fall back on is the Packers just not having as much big time experience. Like you could say that playoff game against Dallas, and they could have beat San Francisco. I mean, that was a great game as well. Matt LaFleur is a great head coach, and I think he obviously had Aaron Rodgers. They were in the playoffs many, many times. But again, this is a whole new environment for Jordan Love going to Brazil. This is probably, you couldn't say it's not the biggest game of his career. Obviously, the playoffs was, but I think this will be kind of the biggest stage. And again, just new territory for him. Jalen Hurts playing in the Super Bowl, it doesn't get any bigger than that. Mm-hmm. But again, I think that this is the first ever NFL game in Brazil. I guess I don't know if the old that whatever league they had, the European league, obviously that wasn't with NFL players really, but
yeah, correct.
I don't know. I think that our offense is better than their defense, and you could say their offense is better than our defense. So yeah, and I think our defense, that's the unit that really has to mesh together. Again, they're not as high highest paid as our offense. And, just that camaraderie and that, meshing everyone together will be the challenge for them. But they have promise. There's a promising outlook on those players. Again, I always say when we have good corners, we're a good team overall, not just the defense. Because corners, in my opinion, are the most important position. I know the Eagles value defensive line a lot, but again, when we've made both of our Super Bowls recently and one in 2017, we had good to great corner play the entire season. So that has me optimistic. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's hard. This offense should be fairly easy to run if you're Jalen Hurts. Not only is he talented, but you have A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley, like two of the most explosive and top 5 players at their position. And honestly, remember when we had a top 5 receiver and a top 5 running back like together. I don't know if you consider Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy back then.
LaShawn McCoy was top 5 at one point, but Deshaun Jackson was always like a top 15 wide receiver.
And then I don't know if you consider T.O. and Westbrook back then if they were both top 5.
T.O., yes. Westbrook, no. I mean, I always view him as a better running back than LaShawn McCoy, but not in circumstances as in the rest of the NFL at that period of time.
So this could be, so you admit this is probably the first time, maybe our lifetimes, where we're going to see something like this.
Exactly. Now I'm going to read this comment off. King Kenzo, thank you for chiming in. Green Bay is nowhere near as talented as the Eagles, so they're not going to come out. So they're going to come out swinging, and we're not. Come on, bro. So I'm going to correlate it to your next comment. Everyone needs to let go of the collapse. That was all on Nick and Sean Desai. Nick is not involved offensively anymore. We have a real defensive coordinator, different circumstances here. So I'm going to piggyback off of what you just said. So I don't know if I'm the only one still kind of worried about that collapse. Maybe I wouldn't be as worried if they got snaps as a brand new offense in the preseason when Green Bay went into Dallas last postseason and absolutely destroyed them and we got our asses kicked in Dallas. Maybe I'd let go of it a little bit. But yeah, if we come out flat to start that game against the Green Bay Packers in Brazil when everyone knows the target's on our back still because of all the talent we have, I'm going to be ready for it. I am. I mean, I still think we're going to have a dynamic season. I still think we're going to win a ton of games. But this week one Brazil game, it's kind of fishy to me. I'm going to be honest with you because let me remind you guys, I play fantasy football. Who's my quarterback in both leagues in fantasy football? Jordan Love. That's for a reason. He's fucking good. He's a good quarterback. All right. He has a good running back now in Josh Jacobs. He has Jalen Reed, Dubs. Who's that other wide receiver he has? He has another one. I'm just forgetting. He has Luke Musgrave, and he has another dynamic tight end and a great coach who is obviously better than Nick Sirianni. So anyone that is downplaying this game, you guys got to do some more research. You got to go on YouTube, look up their highlights. They're fluent running and passing the ball, and they just got better at the end of last year. And they were this close to beating the Super Bowl representatives of the NFC side last year, 49ers. They were this close. So I'm sorry with the whole, like, we're not going to come out swinging. They are. Last year, we didn't play in the preseason, and we started off really slow. They did play in the preseason this year. I expect them to come guns blazing because, like I said, we have a target on our back. So that's just my thought process, my opinion, and I can totally see it happen. Hopefully it doesn't happen. I can see it.
Now, I do. You made some good valid points there. I'm going to push back. Number one, do we really have a target on our back still? And also, you would know since you had Jordan Love in fantasy, he did start slow last year, and there was also a stretch where he was like terrible. He was really. I think he
Right.
made 5 or 6 fantasy points a game. Like there was a time. So I know you're sold on Jordan Love, but he is still a young quarterback. He's not perfect. He's super, super talented.
Mm-hmm.
And Kenzo agree. They should have played in the preseason. Again, that's the Eagles' philosophy. Yes, they may have started slow at times in the past when they haven't, but I'm glad that they didn't sway away from what they believe in because of how last season ended. And
Yeah.
again, prioritize being healthy over risking any type of injury because let's be honest, if any of the starters did play, this is such a physical game. You get a tweak every time you play football. Like that's just the reality. You're good, like even just soreness or whatever. So I would rather, and again, they really do value those scrimmages versus I think they played the Patriots and like the whatever it's called, 7-on-7 or the scrimmage during training camp and the practices. Um Again, we're gonna break down the full game like we will every game this year, position by position. Initially, again, I think you also had the Packers. You had them winning this game. Like that was one of the Eagles' losses. Correct?
Yes, I have the Packers winning this game week one. I had to sorry guys, I had to pick some losses in the schedule. I think our schedule is pretty favorable, but that's a week where I think we're going to lose. I don't think we're going to lose big. I think it's going to be one of those final drive type of losses that it's a neutral field. We'll go home on Monday Night Football and we'll beat the brakes off of Kirk Cousins. That's just how I see it. Me and Scotty will be there along with our friend Ant. But yeah, I would love to win this game. I would love to win every single game. But the fact of the matter is, yes, there's going to be some losses, and I'm a bit worried about this game. I am.
So my question is: so do the Eagles still have a target on their back? And what do you think of Jordan Love like having that rough stretch last
Yeah,
year?
I think they'll always have a target on their back just because of the amount of talent they have on the offensive side of the ball and that they were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And that was a really close game. I just truly believe that anytime you're playing against Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, and you name it, anyone on that offensive side of the ball, the guy they just signed, Jahan Dotson, you're going to bring your A game no matter what because it's going to you visualize it as it's going to be full speed ahead, tough game, Pro Bowl-esque. You're going to have to come with your best. And if they bring their best and we don't, it's going to be a long night.
Again, I'm obviously like, early predictions, and we already said it. I do have this as a win, field goal. I was actually watching the Bills Eagles highlights, our last good highlights of last year, and I know you were on that game. And again, I think Jake Elliott is clutch, and I think that is obviously going to help us. I mean, he was our highest scorer, I think,
Mhm.
last year.
Yeah.
Comment here
No,
from
yeah. I mean, I have to look that up, but I think you're nailing something.
We do have a highlight here from Daryl Clark. Every year that we've gone to the Super Bowl, we've had a great defense, ranked number one in 80, number two, all right. Well, that's awesome. And I think that has to do with cornerback play.
Yeah.
Um, in 2004, I believe that's when we had Sheldon Brown and Lito Shepherd, correct?
Yes, I believe so. Sheldon Brown might be a check mark, but I don't know. We'll see. Asterisk. I'm not.
Incident, he left in '03, I believe, because he was
Yeah.
obviously, of course, we had Brian Dawkins. How could we forget that?
Yeah.
If you remember Daryl Clark, who are again for me, it's the cornerback play. I don't know how our D line was in '04. I'm sure it was great, and we also had from the Titans. Who do we get there?
Oh, it was
Um,
Javon Curse. It was that was a phenomenal defensive line.
mhm.
Yeah, that
But
was a
again,
great defensive line.
for me, and that's why I'm very confident in the defense. I think maybe Eagles fans, like you said, they need to do research about Green Bay, which I will agree with because a lot of their weapons are still very young and unknown and don't get talked about as much.
Hmm.
And I think they have a rookie wide receiver as well, right?
Well, they have two young ones. They have Jalen Reed and they have Romeo Dubs.
So like that, and again, like perception is reality.
Oh, and
Everyone,
how can I forget Christian Watson?
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Now, okay? So then my second question about Jordan Love having that rough stretch last year. I mean, do you think that's just like over, or it's possible that he could start slow in any way?
No, I think it's over. I think he's the perfect example of what you want in a quarterback. Someone that can run when he has to, and someone who's a pure pocket passer who throws dimes. That I don't know what it is with Green Bay, but the last three quarterbacks they've had, they're all phenomenal, like generational talents. He is, in my opinion, I'm going to jump the gun here a bit. I'm going to say this year he's an MVP candidate. I'm going to go that far.
So it sounds like you would take him over Jalen Hurts.
I mean, Jalen Hurts is my quarterback, but if you're talking about a quarterback that I would take over Jalen Hurts, yeah, probably.
I know. I just feel like you're ready to take anyone over Hurts,
Nah,
but
I'm not.
I don't know. But again, I wouldn't go as far generational talent. Again, Green Bay is amazing at drafting quarterbacks. It's actually insane. They're probably the best ever at this point.
Mhm.
With the back. Another comment from Jay, aka Philly. Nobody will be able to play man defense versus our offense. That's a great point. I mean, I think we'll definitely see a lot of zone, just like people how they played us last year.
Mhm.
And the biggest difference is our offense with Kellen Moore. And I think I mean, obviously we're putting a lot of, but it's just, we have so much talent. We just needed a competent veteran offensive coordinator. And now we finally have that.
Mhm.
Here we tried to rely only on our talent. We didn't really, which I mean, again, we're not in the locker room, we're not in these meetings, but from what it looked like, yeah, the scheme was not there. We had the least amount by far of motion, like pre-snap motion, like any creativity, which really makes zero sense. Like it was dead last by like 20 or 30 plays
Yeah.
of no misdirection, no pre-snap motion, which again makes zero sense. So we're finally going to have a normal offense again. But again, like with our talent, like I'm throwing the ball to AJ Brown 60% of the time. Like he is that good, and hopefully everyone's going to be on the same page again. We'll actually have hopefully a healthy Dallas Goddard, who we know that they still really value, and I'm sure he is a huge chip on his shoulder with a lot to prove after last year. He was almost non-existent. So yeah, I mean, just our offense alone, I don't know how it's going to become in going up against really anyone. And again, you really drilled this into my head that I don't think we realize fully. Like, we have a breakaway running back now who can pop off at any given moment, like super explosive. So to have him and AJ Brown, two players that really can take over a game at any time, is something that we're not used to at running back. So it's kind of hard for us to like imagine it or put our shoes in that position. And I think we're going to be really surprised when we see Saquon have these 100-yard games and be like, whoa, holy shit, like, we're winning because of him some of these games. Another point is like, you don't want to run him into the ground, which a lot of teams do when they have that type of running back. But we know this team doesn't even like running the ball. That's there.
Yeah, I mean, I won't be surprised when he has 100-yard rushing games for sure because I think Saquon Barkley's a beast. I don't buy jerseys much, but that was one jersey I had to get in the pro shop when I was at the preseason game. And guys, I actually got the Kelly Green one. You know how much I don't really like the Kelly Green color. I'm just never a fan of it. But times are changing. We're back to Kelly Green for 2 games during the season. So my only purchase of the Kelly Green comes by way of Saquon Barkley. So that'll be my one Kelly Green jersey and I can't wait to wear it.
How much did you? How much it was like 120?
It's 130.
Yeah, they're going
Yeah,
up.
but Starforce says honestly, if all goes well between the Packers and Eagles, I could see them meeting up in the NFC Championship game. Absolutely, I can too. I mean, obviously you have the Niners there as well, but those three teams, yeah, I could see definitely duking it out for a spot there. All right, moving on. So 53-man roster predictions. Who will be cut? Now, I have a couple of bubble players that I want to bring up a little bit. So I'm going to go right off the top, right off the jump, and say these players will get cut. Joseph Nagata, he is a wide receiver. He is gone. He's not going to make it. He during the preseason yesterday, he dropped a wide open pass. Pretty sure he had a fumble that was recovered by the defense on the Vikings. So he will be gone. Paris Campbell will be gone because we have Jahan Dotson now. The crazy thing about Paris Campbell is I feel like he has potential to do something, but unfortunately, it won't be on this team. Now, I do want to add something. Will Shipley, who a lot of people love and loved throughout the preseason, one of our running backs, it looks like he is a shoo-in to make the team because he wasn't dressed during the final preseason game. So he'll be making the team, and I can't wait for that to happen. Now, there is a shocker. There's a shocker for me. Now, a lot of people are going to call me nuts. A lot of people are going to call me crazy, but I have this player not necessarily not making the team, but I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't make the team. And that is Nolan Smith. Now, Nolan Smith, you guys might know it as the 30th pick overall of the last year draft, coming from Georgia, that crazy championship team. Nolan Smith hasn't shown an ounce of talent at the NFL level, not an ounce. And the fact that he was playing during the third preseason game and still hasn't shown anything, I wouldn't be shocked if he got cut. I wouldn't be shocked. I think there's roster spots that are being taken up by players that just don't have it, and he might be one of them, to be honest with you. So, what do you think about that? As Zomp chimes in, what's up, bud? Nolan Smith is garbage. Yeah, I mean, I didn't see much out of him. I think he could potentially be cut. I really can. And same thing with John Ross. I agree with that as well. So, what is your opinion on that? And who do you think is going to make the bubble?
So to Nolan Smith, I think he actually did have a sack last year. We know he like barely played. I mean, for whatever that's worth. And I think he also made some plays yesterday during that third preseason game from what I watched. The preseason doesn't mean much to me.
Mhm.
But the major reason he's going to be on this team, and I agree, for a first round pick, the production obviously hasn't been there, but we shouldn't be giving up on players 1 year, especially drafted that high. And we know Howie will never do that. Like, Nolan Smith is here. I would be absolutely shocked if he's not.
Mhm.
And he deserves an opportunity, you know. I think it's like we expect our players to, everyone does, to make an immediate impact 'cause that's just how society is and how the NFL is today. But it's not realistic for every player. Now, I'm trying to think of an example, like recently, anyone who's really been a late bloomer. Of course, you always bring up the Brandon Graham thing
Yeah.
and different players for the Eagles, but I mean, that was 10 years ago. It's a completely different league now. And college and the NFL are more similar than ever. That's why there's an easier transitions, especially for quarterback. That's why you really see so many quarterbacks come into the league and excel, like CJ Stroud did last year right away. But
Mhm.
again, like you have Anthony Richardson and also Bryce Young for the Panthers, which was the biggest one. But
Right.
again, the Panthers had no talent. So it's hard to judge these people. Houston, he was in a perfect situation where they had a decent amount of talent. I mean, probably one of the best head coach hires, at least we think so far, with D'Amico Ryans, which I'm going to put money on that because we know the type of person and leader he was here, even towards the end of his career. When he
Mhm.
was a linebacker on our defense, he was great. He was really, really good, and just you
Yeah.
could just feel his presence, like
Mufasa.
natural, like a natural leader and a natural like to get everyone together, to get everyone on the same page. And those are qualities that you want in a head coach. Back to the Eagles, I think the biggest shocker for me, just because of course the contract and the biggest fall from grace, it would have to be James Bradbury because he switched to safety during this training camp, and I've only heard things that he's not performing well, even in his new position of safety. And I think he was actually the one that wanted to transition to safety. I'm pretty sure that's what I heard. Someone could fact check me
Yeah.
on that.
Yep.
So also kind of looks a little bit worse because he was the one that suggested it, and he's not. He's not going to be a starter even if he makes the team. So talk about taking up a roster spot because we're handcuffed. The best case scenario would be to trade him, even if he makes the 53-man roster, because we know the trade deadline is, I think it's pushed back at least a week this year.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about on the show in the past that they could really make that trade deadline a huge event. And I hope that they eventually make it a bigger deal than it is. There's obviously been a couple of trades, but I remember, there used to be none. A lot of, the NFL trade deadline, it wasn't like the NBA who
Yeah.
really just takes over. It's a whole event. So James Bradbury for me, I think that's a possibility of a cut though. I think that's probably my number one surprise. Anyone else that really speaks to me? Matt Hennessy was that center that they brought in from the Falcons. I haven't really heard anything good about him. So that would kind of be a little bit of a sting because I'm sure you don't sign someone in free agency. I mean, they do this all the time though. Look at Devontae Parker, he retired out of
Correct.
nowhere. But he was someone for me that, who would have been a good depth piece to have.
Mm.
I'm just looking through the roster now. I'm trying to think of someone that has really earned their spot to make the team. Of course, we know Isaiah Rodgers, but we've known him for a while, pretty much since camp started, that, he's probably going to be a starter, if not anything else. Another person on the bubble, you could say, is like Eli Ricks. And this just because our secondary is so deep.
Right.
I think he and Kaylee Ringo. I'm not sure if you can keep both of them. That would be unfortunate if you
You're gonna
can't.
keep Ringo. You're gonna keep Ringo.
And what do
No
you think
matter
of
what.
Eli Ricks?
I think he's as good as gone. I like how he practices. He's a rough and tough player, but unfortunately, we have too much depth there, which is weird to say, especially after last year. I think he'll be gone. Obviously, you're going to carry Cooper DeJean. You're going to carry Bradbury because Bradbury didn't even dress yesterday, so he's a shoe-in to make the team.
You would so
Uh,
you don't think he's any chance of him being cut?
no, not at all. Especially with the cap hit he'll take. He'll be on the team.
I think he should. I know he should have played yesterday.
Yeah, he didn't even dress. So that
Do you
that means that
think
they're
that?
gonna.
Do you think they're trying to hide him to potentially trade him later? That's why he didn't play.
I mean, if you're playing mind games with the NFL, I mean, maybe. But at the end of the day, he's gonna make the team just because we were just in the Super Bowl with him just a year ago. So I'm not ready to give up on him just yet. Like 3/4 of the fan base is ready to do. I'm not that quick on it. I just want to see if he can find his second gear, his second wind, and help us out if someone did go down on the defense side of the ball.
Do you like him at safety?
I don't know much about him at safety. I don't even think he's ever played at safety, honestly. But at the end of the day, you still need to bring him along because he's better than most of the players that they have on the bubble. So you're gonna have to bring him along. In my opinion, too much of a cap hit, and I'm not ready to let go of him yet. No.
I think he will not. He's not going to last the season here. I just can't, especially if he gives up a huge play or something again, just because of the cap hit. But I think they would even unload him like how the Browns did with who did they do that with, that inventive trade where they traded for like a 7th-round pick and then they just gave, who was that? I think it was a quarterback. Who was it?
So wait, so which trade are you talking about?
It was the Browns and and the Texans, or no, someone traded someone to the Browns. Oh, I should remember this. And it was like like to get rid of the contract of the player, and they literally got like nothing in return. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
No, I don't, but it'll pop up in my head eventually, but I'm not really
someone in the
thinking about it.
comments can remind. So I think it could even be a situation like that where you just get a 7th-round pick back for Bradbury
Mhm.
because, you're saying that because of the cap hit, but if this was anyone else or a rookie or even a 3rd round, but he has that veteran experience. But if there's someone taking up money and a spot, it's him at this point. All the factors included.
All right, but here's the thing, and I can't believe I'm defending Bradbury right now, but I'm gonna be the voice of reason here. You could say anybody at the end of the year last year could have been traded away. That's how horrible we were. You could have even said AJ Brown.
Yeah, but he was the worst. He was a worst.
Yeah, it doesn't matter though. The whole team fell apart. Like you have to come together. You have to perform as a band of brothers. You need to mesh well. And one guy getting attacked when the other part of the team contributed to that 6 to 7 losses at the end of the season last year. It's not just one guy. Yes, he didn't look as good as he did during the Super Bowl year.
He couldn't tackle or cover anything.
He had a big drop off. I understand that, but in my honest opinion, I'm going to stick to my guns here, and I'm going to say he was exhausted during that Tampa Bay game last year in the playoffs. That's why he tackled high instead of low, because he didn't know what to do. His body was beaten up. I'm good at that. I'm good at reading a player for what they are. Bradbury's not that bad. Like a lot of people don't understand what they're saying. And I know you're shaking your head, and you're one of them. I understand that. But at the end of the day, I'm willing to give this guy a chance because we were just in the Super Bowl with this guy. All right. You don't drop off that quickly. I'm sorry. The guy's only 32.
He's over 30. That's what happens sometimes.
I'm going to be 32. I feel fine. These guys are professional athletes. So it's like, I don't understand. It's like this moron in my fantasy draft the other day. He's like, why are you picking Cooper Kupp in the 3rd round? Dude, 3 years ago, he was the number 4th player listed on the top 100.
He's so young.
He's nothing.
I don't know. I don't understand that comparison. I think you need to watch that Tampa Bay. The way he tried to tackle is so embarrassing and so below NFL standards that that's a fireable release offense. The way he played. It was terrible. It was awful.
The whole team was bad.
Yeah, but he in particular he was all right. So he's like the mascot of them being bad.
Whatever.
Everything about him last year.
But Mr. Manipulator brings up a good point. He's like, I think it was Jalen Hurts' fault more than anyone else. I agree with him, to be honest with you. And I don't want to say that going into week 1 of the season. The way he was playing, he couldn't read the blitz. He fell back.
They didn't help him at all. They didn't pick out. How is he supposed to pick up the blitz? They didn't give him any hot routes or anything. They were just coming right at him. What's he supposed to do?
When you're a smart quarterback, all right, you should read and do an audible. That's what you should do.
I don't think they let him do that. I
Well,
wasn't there.
you're getting paid $253 million. You should be able to do it on your own. You're getting paid more than anybody else on the team. So it's
I
like, come on,
agree.
dude.
I agree that Hurts was average last year, but it's not like he flat out sucked and had 17 interceptions and like 5 touchdowns. Like he was still a good quarterback overall. Like he
Yeah.
was. Okay. I don't think it's hard to not put any blame at his feet. I think this year is the year where we literally will, like, finally the honeymoon period is over. Like if he's terrible, then and I'll be the first one to do that. I definitely will be more critical than I probably have ever been because of all the talent surrounding him now. Um, yeah, and it's again to wrap up the Bradbury thing. I get what you're saying, and I think you're trying to be optimistic. Which again, you said you can't believe you're defending Bradbury.
Yeah.
But what I saw last year, also, you could say the Super Bowl. Like, I'm not going to say he cost us the Super Bowl. I don't
I
believe
think
that at
so.
all.
So
But
here's
like, there's a track record, like with him now. Like, come
Yeah, but
on.
here, Scotty, here's my honest opinion on the whole Bradbury situation. Listen, I think I'm one of those guys that doesn't like when people like gang up on somebody and bully them just because it's a cool thing to do. If it made sense, yes, maybe. But at the end of the day, Bradbury, was he bad last year? Yeah, but the whole team was. All right. If you're going to blame him, you're going to blame everybody else as well. Yes, he held on to the receiver, Juju Smith Schuster in the Super Bowl, held on to him. We both saw it. All right. But at the end of the day, we didn't get to that Super Bowl without Bradbury, and we're
No, I
trading him.
agree. He was
Never made
great in 20.
anything for us.
He was great in 22. That's why I
Yes,
wanted him re-signed. We didn't even know that they were going to give him that contract. But
but it's like,
looking now, would you
but
have? But now,
the consistent thing with this fan base that I've never liked, especially growing up, is they gang up on a player just because it's a cool thing. They don't use their critical thinking. They don't think that Bradbury can get better. They just want to get rid of him, even though we signed him to a contract. Listen, he's not going anywhere because we signed him to that contract. So you got to get on board, and you got to hope the guy becomes what he was in 2022.
but like
That's my take on it.
this is almost like the Nelson Aguilar. Remember when Nelson Aguilar could not catch a thing, and he was literally like dripping in sweat every. So you're saying
And
it's
he
the same
helped us
type
out
of
in the Super
thing,
Bowl.
and what?
And he helped us out in the Super Bowl.
No, he wasn't here then, was
Yes, he
he?
was. Yeah, of course he was.
I
Yeah.
thought they got rid of him. Was he here in
No,
2017?
Nelson Aguilar was here in 2017. Remember that big drop pass to from Carson Wentz to Nelson Aguilar where he did a little backflip into the end zone, well, somersault into the end zone backwards. That was him. Nelson Aguilar played a decent part on this team in 2017.
I'm having really bad memory right now. That's crazy. But I do remember
Yeah.
that play.
Yeah, see, look, manipulator agrees with me. Aguilar had a phenomenal year in 2017. He was great with us. He
So when
contributed
did he
to the
leave?
Super Bowl.
Did he leave in 18 or 19? Because I
No,
remember him on the Patriots after that.
He left, I believe, after the 2019 season. I think that's when he left.
Now again, so it's a different thing how you were saying ganging up on a player. Of course, Aguilar was a lot younger than Bradbury at that time.
Right.
But we'll see. But so would you have, now looking back, would you have given Bradbury that contract now knowing what we know?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm not. Listen, I'm not a mind reader. I'm not someone that looks into the future. I'm paying someone based off of what they did for me that season. And he was great. I wasn't just going to let him walk out the door. That would have been stupid.
No, I agree. I'm saying knowing what we know now, would you have given him that contract?
No, I mean, duh, no. But at the same time, it's like you have to think he's signed. There's no getting out of it. So one, you're either going to trade him. You're either going to trade him, but one, you're either going to trade him, which I don't think we're going to get much back for him. Plus, you're going to have to take on part of this contract. I don't think they're going to do that. Or two, you ride it out and hope he gets better. I'm going with option B. I'm going with number 2. Hope he gets better, and let's create a juggernaut on defense. Let's go. Hopefully, CJ gets his act together.
Well, that's who they should have given. That's who they should have given the Bradbury contract to in 22.
Exactly, I agree with you, but they didn't, so it's a moot point. So they got to hope that CJ becomes the leader on that defense, kind of puts Bradbury under his wing, brings him back to what he was, and everyone's happy.
The only thing I will agree, I I think CJ I love his attitude, his personality. I actually watched him be interviewed yesterday in that preseason game. Best thing I saw in the whole game. So I think that swagger and attitude, hopefully that's what could rub off on Bradbury.
Mhm.
But again, I mean, look at this. Lewis saying, I still think Bradbury will be a solid backup and can play multiple positions. Again, I think that's you guys being very optimistic. Again, he hasn't had a good training camp. All right, he won't be here next year. We can at least
Mhm.
agree on that. Like, if they're going to get out of it, like, he could be here. Again, I think he's going to be gone at some point. I would be very surprised.
Mhm.
But I like the optimism from you guys for sure. Again, that's my biggest surprise cut, I think. Last one, I'm just looking at the roster here. Now I guess I want to bring up, do you think that Jeremiah Trotter will start over Nakobe Dean at some point this season or sooner than we think?
Um, I don't think he'll start over him, but if Nakobe Dean kind of veers off, then I think he'll get more snaps. Yeah, I don't think he'll start over him though. No.
I think it's going to be a very interesting trade deadline because if, say, Jeremiah Trotter gets in the game and performs well, I also think Nakobe Dean would have a trade piece during the trade deadline. What do you think about that?
Repeat that.
That if Jeremiah Trotter has, he gets in the game the first 5 weeks, looks very good over Nakobe Dean, could you see Nakobe Dean being like trade bait during the trade deadline at some point?
Well, I mean, if I think Nakobe Dean looks solid, they're not going to trade him because of what he did at Georgia. So, in my honest opinion, I think Nakobe Dean is undersized to be in the NFL. I think he'll get hurt every single year, in my opinion. I think his skill looks a little bit better this year than it did last year at this level. But again, I'm going off of the undersized point in the NFL. So I think that down the road, if Jeremiah Trotter shows excellence on this defense, he will be the starter over him. I just don't know when or if that'll happen.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of a prediction for me. I think Nakobe Dean could be traded in October. That's
Okay.
like does because I think that even in the beginning when he was drafted, I wasn't really expecting a lot out of him this year. But
Mhm.
as I've seen, it's almost like he's his father's son. Like he is really just super confident, a solid, good player. And he was a fifth round pick. And I think that he holds himself to a really high standard. And he's probably honestly pissed off that he went in the fifth round. Not that he was a super, well known player on the national stage,
Mhm.
but it's just so cool that he's even here. And it's like, I don't know, he could really like cement himself. I mean, we're real talking about, I'm going to be really far fetched here, but I think it's a perfect storm for him to be finally an Eagles linebacker that we can, be proud of and be here for a long time. I think it's a perfect setup for that. So that's why I think Nakobe Dean, who now talk about someone that's gotten a lot of chances already, or there's just been some weirdness of the injuries and how he, is not really contributing or starting. Like, he really hasn't even been, he got hurt before that. It's not like he was jumping off of our screen or jumping off, making plays on the field. I think he is the number one person that will be given up on, over Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, anyone that you want to name. I think it's him that, like you said, he's undersized and he just hasn't really brought anything to the table, in my opinion.
Well, I'm also not going to be the lovey-dovey person either. I don't really give a shit about that whole father-son thing in the NFL. There's a reason why Jeremiah Trotter was picked in the fourth round. And I guess we'll see if he could overcome that this year. I'm not going to be one of those people that says, oh, he's going to be a starter, just like all these people said Casey Matthews was going to be a starter because he was Clay Matthews' brother, and he was absolutely terrible. I'm going to take my time with Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and I'm going to see what happens. His father was a beast. Doesn't mean he's going to be a beast. We saw that with Kavon Wallace after Brian Dawkins said he was going to be great. Now, what's funny about Kavon Wallace? He's a captain on Seattle now. So we might have given up on him a little bit too quickly, but here he wasn't anything. So It's
Yeah,
all about how you perform in this big city, how you do, and we'll see what happens. But good luck to you, Jeremiah Trotter, if you make the team.
but I mean, I don't think has that much talent, especially not what they used to. I mean,
Mhm.
um,
We got a hot take alert. Eagles Twitter is the worst. I'd rather be in a room full of Cowboys fans than scroll Eagles Twitter for an hour. Oh, okay. So I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but I wouldn't want to be in a room full of Cowboys fans because Cowboys fans, not only are they stupid, they're delusional. And the last time they won anything, I was still in diapers. So I'm never gonna sit in a room full of Cowboys fans. So screw that.
I think we also missed Star Force comment before that. I think he said, "Who slash what could we get for Nakobe Dean?"
Mhm.
I'm gonna actually throw that to you because you're the one that thinks that we don't have depth.
Right.
Not what, but like what would you ideally want, or like a position that you think is the number one thing? Just because again, we're not gonna get a lot for Nakobe Dean.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, you'd be lucky to get like a sixth round pick.
No,
But
I
if
mean, I would try to trade him for a linebacker who is the size of an NFL linebacker. That's what I would try to get back. Not the most heard of linebacker, not the most played linebacker, someone that you could put in on the field and think he could produce. It's just anybody. If you were going to trade the Kobe Dean away, I would want a player back, not a pick. No.
because we know Devin White is going to start, most likely, correct?
Mhm.
So, and again, that's not really a good sign because you Devin White's on a 1 year deal. Like again, at this point, Nakobe Dean should have solidified himself.
Okay, I'm gonna answer this one because this guy is trying to get under my skin and it's working. Okay, Nutcher Freak, you said Cowboy Stadium was nice and the people were nice. You got drunk after the Eagles lost and had a time hanging out with them outside their stadium. Let me respond to this right now, okay? Cowboys fans in Arlington, Texas are real fans. They're really nice. They're real fans. They know their shit. They know their team isn't good enough. Those are the real Cowboys fans that I wouldn't mind hanging out with. All the other worldwide Cowboys fans, those are the Cowboys fans I'm talking about. The idiots that have no business being Cowboys fans. They weren't born there. They don't live there. They don't understand the life there. Those are the Cowboys fans I'm talking about, not the ones in Arlington, Texas. The ones in Arlington, Texas are fucking awesome. And yes, I said it on film. They're great people. They have great barbecue. I would go back any day of the week. But the Cowboys fans outside of Texas, forget about it. They suck. They're cockroaches. So, yeah, you're welcome for answering your comment. Thank you for tuning in. Bye. Dean and Trotter Jr. are the future at linebacker. What makes you say that? I just want you, since you said the comment, I need you to come back at me with something because if you're going to say they're the future at linebacker, a fourth round pick and a third round pick number 75, who's undersized, I want you to say why. Not to be mean, just my opinion, because we never have any linebackers, and those are the guys that you think are going to fill those voids. I just want your comment on that because I just don't truly believe it.
I agree, and not to clown on you too much, Dank, but that comment, I'm gonna, from personal experience, I said something similar about Jordan Matthews and Nelson Aguilar in 2015 when I thought that they were going to be our number two and number one. And I called in the WIP and said that. So that's like my worst take ever. And
Mhm.
so that reminded me of, okay, I now Jeremiah Trotter, I agree with you. And again, I don't think it's just some lovey-dovey thing, like you said, Kyle. I've seen, uh, I've seen moments out of camp, like, and again, where he was picked in the draft, that's what gives me, optimism, and I think he can turn into a good player. Now, of
Mhm.
course, the, fantasy is that he can be our best linebacker since, his dad or something along those lines. But Kobe Dean, we have seen nothing, so I would definitely like to see why you think that, like Kyle said.
Yeah, I mean we've seen nothing. He fell in the draft because he was injury prone. He's undersized, like I say a million times over again. So I do want your take on that. If you want to respond, you can. If not, it's fine. It's just if you don't respond, I think you gave up personally, but it's okay.
Now,
All right, moving on. Eagles signed Jahan Dotson. Good move, bad move. What do you think?
thing, I want to talk about the Georgia defense thing and how the NFL was really hyping that up, kind of like branding it. At this moment, that Georgia defense draft haul, you could almost compare it to like a dream team situation from 2011. Like that's kind of like where they're at with that right now with Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, N'Kobe Dean, and then they have one more corner who came from there too.
Ringo.
Yeah. So I mean, out of that group, who's the best? I mean, I really don't know. It could be a tie between all four of those players, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. I mean, that Georgia defense was great, but at the same time, it was a college defense. You have to be a big boy to play at this level, and we only have one right now that's looked great. So out of the four we've taken,
this or Nolan Smith.
No, the only player that we got from Georgia who looks anything worth drafting back then is Jalen Carter. That's it.
Yeah, how could I forget about Jalen Carter too? Yeah.
Yep, that's the only one. Moving on. Eagles signed Jahan Dotson. Good move, bad move. I think it's a tremendous move for the wide receiver number 3.
It's almost weird how it happened, like how Washington let him get away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, that was a position of need. Again, I think it was more important to you and a lot of other people than it was to me about having that potentially third wide receiver. But yeah, I think that definitely plugs that hole, and hopefully he can. I think it's just a 1-year deal, right?
I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to look that up, but the fact that we have a one talent as the 3, happy. I'm really happy about that because I like Jahan Dotson out of PSU, and you know me, I don't like PSU, so like the talent that we have there, and Saquon Barkley went to PSU as well, so they're brothers, and I like that. All right, moving on. First look at Week 1, Eagles versus Packers. Yay! So next Friday, not this Friday, next Friday. I'm excited. It's going to be an exciting time.
Well, we kind of already talked about this a lot, but yeah. I think we're obviously gonna go more in depth with that in the upcoming shows. Again, a little bit of a spoiler. I do have the Eagles winning something like 27-24. I'm confident about that game. Oh yeah, I forgot. It was a trade for Dotson.
Yeah.
But who did we give up?
We gave up a ton of picks. We gave up a third. No, wait. I think we gave up a 3rd round pick, a 7th, and a 5th, and we got back a 5th.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean I think that's a little bit of a lot to give up for him, but like you said, the talent is there, and again, that just makes our offense even better. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would have still had the same confidence going into the season with our wide receiver group. So now to add him to it, I mean, there's really no. I mean, this offense should be like top 3, if not potential for number 1. And I was going to ask you this earlier. Do you think the 49ers are overrated at all?
Do I think the 49ers? No, not at all. I think they're actually a perfect team when it comes to winning football games. But the problem is, in a one-game elimination, you're not always going to win the big one. Now, in the 49ers case, they haven't won the big one in the last decade, in like 2 years that they've been to the Super Bowl. So they've been on a kind of a cold streak, but yeah.
Longer than that, they haven't won since '94, the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So I mean, they've been on a cold streak, but they've been there a lot. They're doing the right moves. They're just not winning at the end of the day.
You don't think it's Brock Purdy holding them back at all?
No, I think Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. I think he's the perfect system quarterback for them. They have a good running back. They have Deebo Samuel. They have Brandon Ayuk that's coming back, and now they have Ricky Pearsall, the wide receiver from Florida, who's gonna turn a lot of heads this year as a rookie. I think he's gonna be a good pickup. If you're doing fantasy football, look him up. Ricky Pearsall. He's gonna be a dynamic weapon on that offense side of the ball. So
why Purdy gets no really respect or recognition then?
Because the way that he throws the ball, it's kind of pedestrian. There's nothing flashy to it. It's almost like you could put anyone in the pocket and just have anybody throw the way he does. But they've already tried it with CJ Beathard. They've had Nick Mullins. They've had all these guys that couldn't get it done. And Brock Purdy wins games. These guys can't win games. So I'm going to give him some credit. I think he's a decent quarterback for sure.
I have a question. The NFC, Like, I am taking a lot of people over him, though. Like, I'm even taking Jared Goff, and
Fine.
this sounds crazy, but even like Kirk Cousins, I think is more talented than Brock Purdy. Yes, Brock Purdy wins more than Kirk Cousins, but like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know if it's the seventh round pick thing, but even then, like, he is known for that. But again, I just think that type of like, great quarterbacks, you still don't really mention Brock Purdy. Like, again, I think you would even take Jordan Love over Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I would. Mhm.
So I think that's where this like stigma is with him. Again, I think you probably even say Dak Prescott over him. Like, if I don't know, this is like, do you agree with that or no?
Not necessarily. No, I think Dak Prescott's a loser. I think he's good in the regular season, but he's a definition of a loser.
And I think with Brock Purdy too, the biggest thing that you could probably make sense with him is like if he was on a less talent, he's someone that wouldn't be as good. So,
Yeah, sorry, my doorbell was ringing.
no, you're good.
Yeah.
Other comment from Dank. When it comes to Dean, I believe his instincts have been shown. He's shown ability to get off the block and make tackles, solid blitzer. I mean, that's if you've seen that, good for you, but I haven't. I wouldn't I wouldn't say all that. That makes him seem like he's, ready to be our number one for years to come.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I agree. But Dank Bergang at 52 says, when it comes to Dean, I believe his instincts, going back to what he was saying before, I believe his instincts have been shown. He's shown ability to get off blocks and make tackles, solid blitzer. Yeah, but listen, I'm gonna keep going back to it because I'm gonna be nice and I'm gonna explain something to you. Now, the NFL is for big boys. It's not for players that are trying to be something that they're not. Now, all those things you said, ability to get off blocks, make tackles, and solid blitzer. He's definitely all those things. I agree 100%. He's good at the shoestring tackle. He's good at ankle picks. He's good at all that stuff. I agree with you. But if you're undersized in the NFL, you're not going to last long. You are going to get bullied. Your body is going to break in half. Like 20 car accidents during a season, it's going to get butchered. So you have to make sure that you get players that can last long term in the NFL. I'm not saying he's not talented, but he's going to get bodied. He's going to get bruised. He's going to get put in a body cast. So that's just my ultimate opinion about it. And you rebutted with something else. Same with Trotter. The instinct to pay linebacker and show more talent as well. It's all about the work ethic and development. But the thing with Trotter is you're going off of this based off of who his dad is. His dad was phenomenal. I love Trot. But the thing was, that doesn't mean that the kid is going to be the same as his dad. So we're going to see what happens during the season. It's going to be his audition, and hopefully you're right. Hopefully he is the linebacker of the future. But I just don't know much about him, to be honest with you. I didn't watch him at Clemson, so we'll see what happens. He was a fourth-round pick, not expecting much.
Kyle was distracted by his doorbell. He didn't realize that I just read that that
Yeah.
Dean. But yeah, I like I said, I agree more with the Trotter comparison just because again, I just have more of a better vibe. And like again, what we've seen with Nakobe Dean, I haven't seen what and he also hasn't even played that much to really, in my opinion, make that claim. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I
And we got
agree.
one more topic for today, right?
We have one more topic. Daniel Jones threw 2 interceptions in the preseason, and the Giants media site says Saquon Barkley is injured, and we both know that that is not true. So that pretty much cans all of it.
Now the Daniel Jones thing I want to touch on first. I mean, so we know that he got injured last year. And he got his feet wet again, but like that's pretty embarrassing. That's what's not saying that that would have happened to Hurts or any starter, but like it's pretty a bad look to throw. I think in the same game he threw 2 picks.
Mm.
Like that's like, I mean, also on Daniel Jones, but how fucking embarrassing,
It's
right?
really embarrassing.
And
Really
then
embarrassing.
is I don't even know. I think he like got like he was something like roughed up in practice. But again, the Giants media or whoever wrote that tried to make it seem like, oh, the Eagles are now feeling the Giants' pain about how Saquon's injury prone. And now, so again, this kind of just goes back to how delusional the Giants fans are. And like again, the media team, the organization, they're pushing this down the fans' throats. Again, I think that they are like, this is why they've been bad for so long, like they are. They're literally just, I don't know, they're just like bitches at this point.
They're definitely bitches. I agree.
They just are such in complete denial. Even like for a media, like whatever that is, whoever wrote that, and it's like just not true. Like he's not injured, he's not missing any time, he's perfectly fine for week one. It's you're like trying to push an agenda that like, oh, we didn't need Saquon when like your team is so much worse off without him in every way. It just is.
Yeah, in my opinion, they're playing for the draft for sure. But it's funny how these fans just think that with the team that they have currently, that they're going to be anything this year. I mean, your best running back is Singletary. You still have Daniel Jones. Sure, you have Malik Neighbors, but he's your one target you have. You think Jalen Hyatt's going to be good? I think he can be good. I just don't think he's going to be anything special. I have them winning 4 to 5 games this year, and they're going to be set up well in the draft. And I think that's what they're really ultimately going for at the end of the day.
Again, they made a huge mistake by keeping Daniel Jones. They can't go back on that now. And again, they don't have the talent. You know, they
No.
on their D line, but their offense is just in shambles. They've been trying to fix their offensive line since like almost 10 years now, and they still can't get it right. Free
No.
agent draft picks, no matter what it is. And honestly, I was kind of worried, not worried, but I'm like, okay, they got this new GM from the Bills. The Bills have been pretty successful. And, that guy, I mean, you could give him credit for turning the Bills around almost. Because you know how bad the Bills were for years.
Mhm.
That like hard knocks bullshit. He
Oh,
seemed
the Bills were horrendous for years, which is why I don't understand all the hate that Josh Allen gets. He's what brings that team to the level where they're at to potentially lose every week. Every postseason, but at least they're there. The Bills, other than him, they're awful.
Giants wish they were the Bills right now. A lot of teams would, 100%.
Exactly. But with that said, guys, we are going to get out of here. Sorry for the whole Sunday show. At least we did it, though. Something happened on Friday, obviously, and we got it done. I cannot wait for this Friday show. We're going to talk a lot about the game in Brazil and the future of this team and how far we're going to go. By the way, the future of the show, we're going to start taking phone calls probably week one. I'm going to get a producer in here and we're going to have this shit fly. So hopefully you guys join us for more. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content, and we are definitely for you guys for sure. If it weren't for you, obviously the show wouldn't exist, and I cannot wait to get the season started.
Yeah, and we'll also by that time we'll know the 53-man roster, so we'll be able to talk about that too.
Yeah, for sure. With that said, guys, we're gonna get out of here, and with that said, go Birds, fly Eagles, fly, and we're ready. We're definitely ready. Peace, guys.
Week, appreciate